A deaf little girl stumbles and accidentally saves a millionaire from danger on the street. An innocent act that changes both of their lives forever, revealing a secret no one expected. Which country are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated with us. The Seattle rain hammered against the pavement like bullets of ice, each drop exploding in tiny silver bursts that soaked through Nathan Cole's $1,500 Italian shoes. He didn't notice. His phone pressed against his ear. He barked orders about the Chen Industries merger while his driver circled the block for the third time, searching for parking near Pike Place Market. Nathan had exactly 17 minutes before his next board meeting, and he'd promised his assistant he'd pick up those specific organic coffee beans she wouldn't shut up about. "I don't care if Chen wants 48 hours, Nathan growled into the phone, his jaw tight. "Tell him he has until 5 o'clock today, or we walk. There are 6 other companies who'd kill for—" He never finished the sentence. A blur of pink and white crashed into his legs with surprising force. Nathan stumbled forward, his phone clattering to the wet concrete as small hands grabbed his coat. The world tilted sideways. Behind him, a delivery truck's horn screamed, a sound that seemed to come from inside his skull. The truck's brakes shrieked metal against metal, and Nathan felt the rush of air as 2 tons of steel missed his back by inches. His heart hammered against his ribs. The truck driver leaned out the window, face pale, shouting something Nathan couldn't process through the adrenaline roaring in his ears. When Nathan finally looked down, he found himself staring into the widest, most frightened brown eyes he'd ever seen. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, sat on the sidewalk where she'd fallen after pushing him. Her pink raincoat was 2 sizes too big, the sleeves covering her hands. Her dark hair hung in wet strings around a face smudged with dirt. She wore mismatched shoes, 1 sneaker, 1 rubber boot, but it was her eyes that stopped Nathan cold. They held a depth of worry no child should carry, like she'd seen too much of the world's cruelty already. The girl's mouth moved, forming words, but no sound came out. Her small hands flew through the air in rapid gestures Nathan didn't understand. Sign language. She was deaf. "Hey, are you okay?" Nathan knelt down, the cold water seeping through his suit pants. He reached for her arm, but she flinched away, those enormous eyes filling with tears. She kept signing frantically, her movements becoming more desperate when Nathan didn't respond. A crowd had gathered, faces peering down with that particular mixture of concern and inconvenience that city dwellers wore during unexpected dramas. Nathan's driver pushed through, phone already out, probably calling 911. "Sir, are you hurt?" his driver asked. "I'm fine, but this little girl—" Nathan turned back to where she'd been sitting. She was gone. Nathan spun around, scanning the crowd. There, a flash of pink disappearing around the corner of the fish market. He started after her, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. His assistant, Rebecca, had materialized with an umbrella and his phone, which she'd retrieved from the gutter. "Mr. Cole, your meeting." "We're already 7 minutes late. There's a child. She saved my life and she just—" "I'm sure her parents are nearby," Rebecca said in that efficient tone that made arguments feel pointless. "You have the Baxter presentation in 10 minutes. They've flown in from New York specifically for this." Then Nathan looked back at the corner where the pink coat had vanished. Something in his chest felt wrong, like he'd lost something valuable before knowing he possessed it. But Rebecca was right. The merger couldn't wait. He had responsibilities, shareholders, employees depending on this deal. "Fine," he heard himself say, "let's go." But all through the meeting, through the presentations and the handshakes and the champagne toasts celebrating the successful merger, Nathan kept seeing those frightened brown eyes, kept feeling the small hands that had grabbed his coat with surprising strength. A 6-year-old deaf girl had saved his life and disappeared into the Seattle rain like a ghost. He didn't know it yet, but that moment on the sidewalk had set in motion a chain of events that would unravel everything he thought he knew about his past. The girl was no accident, and their meeting was no coincidence. Some threads of fate are woven long before we see the pattern. 3 weeks later, Nathan sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor, staring at the city lights below without really seeing them. The coal industry's logo glowed in blue neon from the building across the street, a reminder of his father's legacy. Thomas Cole had built an empire, and Nathan had spent the last 6 years since his death making it even bigger. Bigger buildings, bigger profits, bigger everything except the hole in his chest that nothing seemed to fill. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Cole, your 3 o'clock is here. Dr. Sanderson from Seattle General." Nathan frowned. He hadn't scheduled any meetings with doctors. Send him in. Dr. David Sanderson was younger than Nathan expected, maybe 40, with graying temples and the kind eyes that made people trust him with their secrets. He carried a worn leather briefcase and had the slightly rumpled look of someone who spent more time saving lives than worrying about appearances. "Mr. Cole, thank you for seeing me without an appointment." Dr. Sanderson shook his hand firmly. "I'll be direct. I'm head of pediatric cardiology at Seattle General, and we have a situation that requires your specific help." Nathan gestured to the chair across from his desk. "I'm listening. 3 weeks ago, you had an incident near Pike Place Market. A young girl pushed you out of the path of a truck." Dr. Sanderson's eyes held Nathan's. "That girl is one of my patients. Her name is Lily Martinez, and she's dying." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. Those frightened brown eyes suddenly had a name, a history, a death sentence. "What's wrong with her?" "Lily has a severe congenital heart defect. She needs a transplant urgently, but her mother, Sophia Martinez, can't afford the surgery. They have no insurance, no family support, and Mrs. Martinez is working 3 jobs just to keep them housed and fed." Dr. Sanderson leaned forward. "I'm here because Lily told me, through her interpreter, that she saved a man's life a few weeks ago. A man in an expensive suit who looked important. She described you perfectly." Nathan's throat felt tight. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Lily's mother is too proud to ask for help, and Lily herself doesn't understand that her heroic act could be her salvation." Dr. Sanderson pulled a folder from his briefcase. "The surgery costs $300,000. For you, that's probably what you spend on a car. For them, it's impossible. I'm asking you to save the life of the child who saved yours." Nathan took the folder, his hands strangely unsteady. Inside were medical records, photographs, and a single crayon drawing of a stick figure in pink, pushing another stick figure away from a big black box with wheels. At the bottom, in careful letters clearly traced over and over, "I hope the man is okay." Something cracked inside Nathan's chest. When was the last time anyone had hoped he was okay? When was the last time someone had given a damn about Nathan Cole, the person, rather than Nathan Cole, the bank account? "Where are they?" Nathan asked quietly. Dr. Sanderson smiled for the first time. "I was hoping you'd ask that." The address led Nathan to a neighborhood in South Seattle he'd never visited, despite living in the city his entire 34 years. The buildings leaned against each other like tired old men, their paint peeling, windows covered with bars or cardboard. His Mercedes looked obscene parked at the curb, drawing stares from the kids playing in the street despite the February cold. Nathan had left Rebecca and his driver behind. This felt like something he needed to do alone, though he couldn't explain why, even to himself. The apartment building's front door hung crooked on its hinges. The lobby smelled of mildew and something cooking, garlic and cumin maybe. Mail spilled from broken boxes onto the floor. Nathan climbed 3 flights of stairs, the railing sticky under his hand, until he found apartment 3C. He raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. What was he doing here? He could just write a check, have his accountant handle it, send Dr. Sanderson the money anonymously. That would be easier. Cleaner, the smart business move. But those eyes, those frightened 2-old eyes in a 6-year-old's face. Nathan knocked. The door opened a crack, security chain still attached. A woman's face appeared in the gap, mid-30s, with Lily's same brown eyes but carrying twice the worry. Dark circles underneath suggested sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her black hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail, and she wore pale blue scrubs with a name tag, Sophia Martinez, certified nursing assistant. Yes? Her voice held the wariness of someone who'd learned to expect bad news. Mrs. Martinez, my name is Nathan Cole. I believe your daughter Lily. We don't want anything. She started to close the door. Please wait. Lily saved my life 3 weeks ago, near Pike Place Market. She pushed me out of the way of a truck. Sophia's face changed, suspicion giving way to surprise, then something that looked like fear. That was you. Dr. Sanderson told me about Lily's condition. I want to help. We don't need charity, Sophia said, but her voice cracked on the word charity, like it cost her something to say it. It's not charity, it's a debt. Nathan pulled out his business card, sliding it through the gap. Your daughter risked herself to save a stranger. The least I can do is make sure she gets the medical care she needs. Sophia stared at the card. Thick, expensive cardstock with raised gold lettering. Coal Industries, she read aloud. Her eyes widened. The Coal Industries? The billionaire family. My father built the company. I just run it now. People like you don't come to neighborhoods like this unless they want something. Nathan couldn't argue with that. In her position, he'd think the same thing. I want to help Lily, that's all. No strings, no conditions. Just let me pay for the surgery. Why? The question came out sharp, accusatory. Guilt? Tax write-off? Another story to tell at your fancy parties about how generous you are? The words stung because there was truth in them. Nathan had attended 100 charity galas, written 100 checks, smiled for 100 photographs. None of it had ever felt real. None of it had ever mattered. Because she looked at me like I was worth saving, Nathan said quietly. And nobody's looked at me like that in a very long time. Something shifted in Sophia's expression. She studied his face for a long moment, searching for the lie, the angle, the catch. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she slowly unchained the door. The apartment was tiny, living room, kitchen, and 1 bedroom visible from where Nathan stood, but it was meticulously clean, everything in its place despite obvious poverty. Handmade curtains covered the windows, children's drawings decorated the refrigerator. A small table held schoolbooks and a worn Bible, and there, on the couch, wrapped in a faded blue blanket, was Lily. She looked smaller than Nathan remembered, more fragile. Her skin had a greyish tint that terrified him, and she moved carefully, like every breath hurt. But when she saw Nathan, those enormous eyes lit up with recognition and delight. Her hands flew through signs, rapid and excited. She says she's glad you're okay, Sophia translated, her voice thick with emotion. She says she prayed for you every night, that God would keep you safe. Nathan's throat closed up completely. When was the last time anyone had prayed for him? He crossed the room slowly, not wanting to frighten her, and knelt beside the couch. Up close, he could see the bluish tint to her lips, the way her chest rose and fell with effort. Tell her thank you, Nathan said to Sophia. Tell her she's a hero. Sophia's hands moved in fluid, graceful gestures. Lily watched her mother's signs, then looked at Nathan with such pure joy that he felt something break and reform inside his chest. The girl reached out and touched his cheek with one small hand, her palm cool against his skin. She signed something else, her movements slow and deliberate. She says you look sad, Sophia translated, wiping her eyes. She wants to know if she can draw you a picture to make you feel better. Nathan couldn't speak. He just nodded. Lily carefully extracted herself from the blanket and shuffled to the table where crayons and paper waited. She climbed into the chair with obvious effort, each movement calculated to conserve energy, and began to draw with intense concentration. Nathan stood and found Sophia watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. How long has she been sick? She was born with the defect. Most kids don't survive past 2 or 3, but Lily's always been a fighter, stubborn. Sophia managed a weak smile. Like her mother, we've managed with medication and careful monitoring, but her heart is failing. Dr. Sanderson says she has maybe 3 months without the transplant, and with it, a normal life, school, friends, growing up. Everything a mother dreams for her child. Sophia's voice broke. Everything I can't give her because I chose to be a single mother, because I wouldn't abort her when the doctors found the defect in utero, because I believed God had a plan, some plan. Watching your 6-year-old daughter slowly die because you can't afford to save her. The bitterness in Sophia's voice was sharp enough to cut. Nathan understood it. Anger was easier than despair. Dr. Sanderson can schedule the surgery as soon as a heart is available? If we had the money, yes. She's on the transplant list, but we're low priority because we can't prove we can pay for the post-surgery care, the anti-rejection drugs, the follow-ups. The American healthcare system doesn't care how many prayers you say or how hard you work. It only cares about money. Then she'll have the money, all of it. Surgery, medications, whatever she needs for the rest of her life. Sophia stared at him. Why would you do this? You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. She pushed me out of the way of a truck. I think I owe her everything. People don't just... Sophia shook her head, pressing her palms against her temples. There has to be a catch. In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it's because someone's about to ask for something impossible in return. Nathan thought about his life, his world of contracts and negotiations where nothing was ever free. He'd built his fortune on understanding that everyone wanted something, that every gift came with strings attached. But standing in this cramped apartment, watching a dying 6-year-old draw a picture to cheer up a billionaire, he realized Sophia was right to be suspicious. His world had made her that way. I'll have my lawyers draw up papers, a medical trust for Lily, irrevocable in her name. You'll have full control, I'll have none. The only condition is that it must be used for her health care. Nothing else, no strings. Before Sophia could respond, Lily appeared beside Nathan, holding up her drawing. It showed 2 stick figures, one small in pink, one tall in black, holding hands under a yellow sun. Above them, in careful letters, she'd written, "Friends." Nathan took the drawing with shaking hands. "Tell her yes," he whispered. "Tell her we're friends." Sophia's hands moved through the signs, and Lily's face broke into the widest smile Nathan had ever seen. She threw her small arms around his waist, hugging him with surprising strength for someone so sick. Nathan froze, unused to physical affection, then slowly wrapped his arms around her tiny shoulders. She felt like paper, like she might crumble if he held too tight. But she was also warm and alive and trusting in a way that terrified him. Because Nathan knew something Sophia didn't, something Dr. Sanderson didn't, something no one knew. 6 years ago, Nathan's father had made him do something unforgivable, something Nathan had spent 6 years trying to forget, something that money and success and an empire couldn't wash away. And now, kneeling in this apartment with a dying 6-year-old's arms around him, Nathan felt the weight of that secret pressing against his chest like a stone. Because there was one more thing about Lily Martinez that nobody knew yet. Something that would change everything. Something Nathan wouldn't discover for another 2 weeks when Dr. Sanderson called with results from Lily's latest blood tests. The girl who'd saved Nathan's life was about to become his salvation. but the price of that salvation might destroy them both. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, contracts, and medical consultations. Nathan established the trust fund with military efficiency, ensuring every legal protection was in place. Sophia signed the papers with shaking hands, still clearly waiting for the catch, for Nathan to reveal his true motives. He couldn't blame her. In her shoes, he'd think the same. He visited the apartment 3 times during those 2 weeks. The first time, he brought a laptop programmed with educational games designed for deaf children. The second time, art supplies, quality ones, not the cheap crayons from the dollar store. The third time, he came empty-handed because Sophia had asked him, her voice tight with controlled anger, to stop bringing gifts. "She's not a charity case," Sophia had said, "and neither am I. The medical trust is enough, more than enough, but Lily is getting attached to you, and when you get bored of playing savior and disappear back to your penthouse, it's going to break her heart." "I'm not going anywhere." "That's what they all say." Sophia's eyes held a bitterness that spoke of experience. "That's what Lily's father said before he left when he found out she was deaf. That's what my own parents said before they disowned me for refusing to abort a defective baby. That's what my sister said before she moved to California and stopped returning my calls. Everyone leaves, Mr. Cole. It's what people do." Nathan wanted to argue, to promise he was different. But how could he? Sophia was right. He had a track record of relationships measured in months rather than years, of investments rather than commitments. The only constant in his life was work, and work didn't have feelings that could be hurt. But then Lily would appear, signing something her mother would translate, and Nathan would find himself staying longer than intended, teaching her to play chess using the board his father had given him when he was 7. Watching Disney movies with subtitles while Lily cuddled against his side, her small hand in his. Reading her stories that Sophia translated into sign language, Lily's eyes wide with wonder. He was getting attached too, and that terrified him more than any business deal ever had. On the 14th day after their first meeting, Dr. Sanderson called Nathan directly rather than going through Rebecca. "We need to talk, in person, now." The urgency in the doctor's voice sent ice through Nathan's veins. "Is it Lily? Is she—" "She's stable, but I've discovered something in her recent blood work. Something you need to see." They met at a coffee shop near the hospital, neutral territory. Dr. A. Sanderson looked like he hadn't slept, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling slightly as he set down his coffee cup. He pulled a file from his briefcase and slid it across the table. "Lily's blood type is AB negative, Dr. Sanderson said without preamble. "It's extremely rare, less than 1% of the population. When I ran her extended genetic profile for tissue matching purposes, I found something unusual. Multiple genetic markers that suggested a familial connection to someone in our hospital's database." Nathan's mouth went dry. "What kind of connection?" "The hospital maintains genetic profiles for all registered organ donors and patients who've had extensive treatments here. It helps us match transplants more effectively." Dr. Sanderson pulled out another sheet, this one covered in complex genetic sequences. 6 years ago, a woman was treated here for pregnancy complications. She gave birth prematurely at 32 weeks. The baby didn't survive. The mother signed an organ donor consent before she died 3 days later from complications. "I don't understand what this has to do with Lily." The woman's name was Elena Rodriguez. She was 23 years old, and according to her medical records, she'd been in a relationship with a wealthy older man, someone she refused to name even when hospital social workers pressed her. Someone who'd pressured her to terminate the pregnancy when tests showed the baby had severe congenital heart defects. Nathan's world tilted sideways. No, that wasn't possible. Elena's genetic profile is a 47% match with Lily's, Dr. Sanderson continued, his voice gentle but relentless. That's consistent with being maternal half-siblings. They shared the same mother. The coffee shop seemed to recede, sounds becoming muffled and distant. Nathan gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. Lily's mother is Sophia Martinez. I've met her. She's alive. Sophia Martinez adopted Lily when she was 4 days old. It's all in the records I obtained, legally, I should add, with a court order. Sophia worked as a nursing assistant in the NICU when Elena gave birth. When Elena's baby died, and Elena herself died shortly after, Sophia found out the hospital was sending Elena's newborn daughter, a child born on the same day, with the same heart defect, to the foster system. Sophia had been trying to adopt for 2 years. She took Lily home 3 weeks later. Nathan couldn't breathe. The pieces were falling into place with horrible inevitability. 6 years ago, his father had been alive, demanding Nathan break off his relationship with Elena Rodriguez, a waitress he'd met at a hospital charity event, calling her a gold digger, threatening to cut Nathan off completely if he didn't end it. And Nathan, 28 and still desperately seeking his father's approval, had done exactly that, had told Elena it was over, had offered her money for an abortion when she called 2 months later, crying, telling him she was pregnant, had refused to take her calls after that, had blocked her number, had pretended she didn't exist, had never known she'd died, had never known the baby had survived, had never known. There's more, Dr. Sanderson said quietly. I had the hospital run a comparison between Lily's genetic profile and the profiles of all registered organ donors in our system. It's not standard procedure, but given the circumstances, I felt it was warranted. He pulled out one more sheet of paper. This one had 2 names at the top, with percentages listed beside long strings of genetic code. Lily Martinez is a 99.7% genetic match with Nathan Thomas Cole, registered organ donor. Dr. Sanderson met Nathan's eyes. She's your daughter. The coffee shop sounds came rushing back, the hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of conversations, the clink of cups. Nathan heard all of it with crystal clarity while his mind screamed a single word over and over. No, that's impossible. Elena's baby died. The hospital told Elena that her first baby, a boy, died within minutes of birth. He had multiple organ failures, wasn't viable outside the womb. Elena hemorrhaged badly during that delivery. The doctors performed an emergency cesarean, and that's when they discovered she was carrying twins, identical twins, which is extremely rare for dizygotic twins with different genetic presentations. The second baby, a girl, survived. But Elena was unconscious, and by the time she woke up, she was too weak to understand what the doctors were telling her. She died believing both babies had died. Nathan's hands were shaking. His vision blurred. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't the hospital contact me? Because Elena listed no father on the birth certificate. She had no identification on her when she was admitted, gave a fake name initially. By the time the hospital sorted out her real identity, she was dead and there were no next of kin listed. The baby went into the system. These things happen more often than you'd think, especially with undocumented or marginalized mothers who are afraid of authority figures. I have to tell them. Sophia and Lily, they have to know. Dr. Sanderson grabbed Nathan's arm. Think very carefully about this. Sophia has raised Lily for 6 years. She's the only mother Lily has ever known. You're a billionaire who abandoned Elena when she was pregnant, who refused her calls, who offered money for an abortion. How do you think that story plays out in family court? Nathan felt sick. Are you saying... I'm saying that if Sophia fights you for custody, she'll win. You have money, but she has 6 years of being Lily's mother. She has a paper trail of adoption records, medical care, sacrifice. You have a paper trail of abandonment. Dr. Sanderson's voice was hard. And if you tell them the truth, and Sophia decides you're a threat, she could take Lily and disappear. Go to another state, change their names, you'd never find them. She wouldn't do that. She needs the money for Lily's surgery. She's a mother protecting her child. People do unimaginable things when their children are threatened. Dr. Sanderson leaned back, his expression weary. I'm telling you this because Lily is my patient, and I care about what happens to her. If you want to be part of her life, you need to do this carefully, slowly. Build trust with Sophia first. Prove you're not going to abandon them again. I didn't know, Nathan whispered. I didn't know Elena was dead. I didn't know the baby survived. I didn't know. But you do now. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Nathan looked down at the genetic profile in his hands, at the proof that the 6-year-old girl who'd saved his life was the daughter he'd never known he had, the daughter he'd accidentally abandoned, the daughter who was dying because he'd been too much of a coward to stand up to his father 6 years ago. I'm going to save her, Nathan said, his voice hollow. Whatever it takes. I'm going to save my daughter. Dr. Sanderson nodded slowly. Then here's what we need to do. Outside the coffee shop, Seattle rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean. But some stains, Nathan knew, couldn't be washed away. Some mistakes couldn't be undone. He could only move forward and hope it was enough. Hope that when the truth finally came out, and it would, inevitably, Lily and Sophia would find it in their hearts to forgive him. Hope that saving Lily's life would be enough to atone for the 6 years he'd stolen from her. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he could become the father she deserved. But deep in his chest, where the truth lived, Nathan knew some debts could never be fully repaid. Nathan spent the next 3 days locked in his penthouse, staring at the genetic reports until the letters blurred together. He'd cancelled all meetings, ignored Rebecca's increasingly frantic calls, and survived on black coffee and the kind of existential dread that made sleep impossible. The Seattle skyline glittered outside his floor-to-ceiling windows, 1,000 lights representing 1,000 lives that seemed infinitely simpler than his own. His daughter. Lily was his daughter. The words felt foreign in his mind, like a language he'd never learned to speak. He'd never wanted children, or so he'd told himself. His father had raised him with cold efficiency, treating parenthood like a corporate merger where emotions were liabilities, and love was weakness. Nathan had assumed he'd be the same. Better not to have children at all than to damage them the way Thomas Cole had damaged him. But Elena hadn't given him that choice. She'd made it for him, or tried to, and he'd responded by abandoning her, by offering blood money to make his problem disappear. Now that problem had a name, a face, brown eyes that looked at him like he was worth saving. On the 4th day, Dr. Sanderson called again. We have a heart. Nathan's own heart seemed to stop. What? A match for Lily. A 10-year-old boy in Tacoma, brain-dead after a car accident. His parents agreed to donate. The tissue typing is nearly perfect. We need to move fast. The window for transplant viability is narrow. Can you get Sophia and Lily to the hospital within the hour? Yes, I'll get them there. Nathan was already grabbing his keys, his jacket, his phone. Dr. Sanderson, thank you. Thank you for everything. Save the thanks until after she survives the surgery. And Nathan, the doctor's voice softened. Whatever you decide about telling them the truth, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Not guilt, not obligation, but genuine love for that little girl. Nathan didn't trust himself to respond. He just ended the call and ran. The apartment building looked different in the grey morning light, older, more fragile, like a strong wind might blow it over. Nathan took the stairs 3 at a time, his expensive shoes slapping against concrete that was cracked and stained with substances he didn't want to identify. When he reached 3C, he pounded on the door with both fists. "Sophia, open up! It's Nathan!" The door flew open. Sophia stood there in her scrubs, hair wild, eyes red like she'd been crying. Behind her, Nathan could see Lily on the couch, her breathing labored, her skin that terrible grayish color that meant her heart was failing faster than anyone had expected. "She's worse," Sophia said, her voice breaking. "I was about to call an ambulance. She collapsed this morning, and I don't know. They have a heart. Dr. Sanderson called. We need to get her to the hospital now." Sophia's face went through a dozen emotions in 2 seconds. Disbelief, hope, terror, determination. Okay, I need to grab her bag, her medications, I'll get Lily." "You get whatever you need. My car is downstairs." Nathan moved past Sophia into the apartment. Lily lay on the couch, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. Her eyes were closed, but when Nathan knelt beside her, they fluttered open. She managed a weak smile and signed something slowly. Nathan looked back at Sophia, who was frantically shoving items into a backpack. "What did she say?" "She said, 'I knew you'd come.'" Sophia's voice cracked. "She told me this morning, before she collapsed, that you'd save her, that God sent you to save her." Nathan's throat closed up. He carefully slid his arms under Lily's tiny body. She weighed nothing, less than nothing, like holding air, and lifted her against his chest. She curled into him instinctively, her head resting against his shoulder, her small hand clutching his shirt. "I've got you, sweetheart," Nathan whispered. "I've got you, and I'm not letting go." They took the stairs as fast as Nathan dared, Sophia right behind him with the backpack and her purse and Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit. The Mercedes was still at the curb, miraculously unvandalized. Nathan laid Lily across the back seat, her head in Sophia's lap, and then he drove like his life depended on it, because it did. Not his physical life, maybe, but something more important. Something he'd thought he'd lost years ago, when his father had beaten the softness out of him with criticism and impossible expectations and the constant message that emotions were weaknesses. Nathan had built walls around his heart so high and thick that he'd forgotten what it felt like to care about something more than profit margins and stock prices. But holding Lily, feeling her fragile heartbeat against his chest, those walls had crumbled like they were made of sand. And now, driving through Seattle traffic with his daughter dying in the back seat, Nathan understood what his father had never taught him, that caring about someone, truly caring, wasn't weakness at all. It was the only thing that made you strong. The surgery took 11 hours. Nathan learned this later, when time started making sense again. During the surgery itself, time became elastic, stretching and compressing in ways that defied physics. Seconds lasted hours, hours passed in seconds. The hospital waiting room became the entire universe. Stale coffee, fluorescent lights, plastic chairs that hurt his back, and Sophia pacing endless loops around the perimeter like a caged animal. They didn't talk much. What was there to say? Sophia prayed, rosary beads sliding through her fingers, her lips moving silently. Nathan sat with his elbows on his knees and his head in his hands, making promises to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. "If you let her live, I'll tell her the truth. If you let her live, I'll be the father she deserves. If you let her live, I'll spend the rest of my life making up for abandoning her. If you let her live." Rebecca appeared at some point, having tracked him down through his credit card activity. She brought food neither of them ate and stayed long enough to hold Sophia while she broke down crying, then disappeared again with uncharacteristic tact. Other families came and went, their own dramas playing out in other corners of the waiting room. A woman whose husband was having brain surgery, an elderly man whose wife had had a stroke, a young couple whose teenage son had been in a motorcycle accident. The waiting room was a democracy of fear, where money and status meant nothing. Everyone was equal in their terror. Nathan had never felt more human in his life. At hour 7, Dr. Sanderson appeared briefly to update them. The transplant was going well. Lily's body was accepting the new heart. Her vitals were stable. All good news, delivered in the careful monotone of someone who'd learned not to promise anything until the patient was awake and breathing on their own. At hour 10, a different doctor, a surgeon whose name Nathan immediately forgot, came out to say they were closing up, almost done, still optimistic. At hour 11 and 43 minutes, Dr. Sanderson finally emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, mask pulled down around his neck. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were bright. "She's going to make it," he said simply. Sophia made a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a laugh. Nathan felt his legs give out, suddenly grateful for the plastic chair beneath him. His hands were shaking so badly he had to clench them into fists. "The new heart is functioning beautifully," Dr. Sanderson continued. "Her vitals are strong. She's being moved to pediatric ICU now. She'll be sedated for at least the next 12 hours while we monitor for rejection, but barring complications, she should make a full recovery." "Can we see her?" Sophia asked. "Once she's settled in ICU, yes. One at a time, 5 minutes each, and she won't be conscious. But you can see her." Dr. Sanderson smiled, a real smile, not the professional one, and it transformed his tired face. "You just witnessed a miracle. That little girl is a fighter." After he left, Sophia turned to Nathan. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "She's going to live. My baby is going to live." "Our baby," Nathan said before he could stop himself. Sophia's smile faltered. "What?" Nathan's mind raced, trying to find the words, the right way to explain. But there was no right way. There was only the truth, sharp and painful and unavoidable. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. About Lily, about me, about Mr. Cole." A nurse had appeared in the doorway. "Lily is asking for you. She's awake. She shouldn't be, but she is, and she's signing your name. We tried to tell her she needs to rest, but she's getting agitated." Nathan looked at Sophia. "You should go first. You're her mother." "She wants you," Sophia said, her voice strange. "Go." Nathan followed the nurse through the sterile hospital corridors, past rooms filled with sick children and exhausted parents, until they reached ICU. The nurse stopped him at the door with a hand on his arm. 5 minutes. She needs rest, and Mr. Cole. She's on a lot of medications. If she says strange things, don't worry. It's normal." The ICU room was dimmed, machines beeping softly in the darkness. Lily lay in the bed, dwarfed by equipment and tubes and monitors. But her eyes were open, bright and alert despite the drugs, and when she saw Nathan, her whole face lit up. She raised one small hand and signed something. Nathan didn't understand, but he moved closer anyway, careful not to disturb any of the tubes and wires connecting her to the machines keeping her alive. "Hey there, warrior," Nathan whispered, taking her hand gently. "You did it. You survived." Lily signed again, more insistent. Nathan looked helplessly at the nurse, who'd followed him in. "She's saying Daddy," the nurse translated, her voice soft. "She keeps signing Daddy came back." Nathan's world stopped. "What?" "It's the drugs. Kids say all kinds of things when they're coming out of anesthesia. Don't worry about it." But Lily was looking at Nathan with those enormous brown eyes, and they were clear, lucid. She signed again, slower this time, making sure he saw each gesture. The nurse's breath caught. "She's saying, I always knew you'd come back. Mama said you were in heaven with my first mama, but I knew you'd come back to save me." And then Nathan felt his knees buckle. He caught himself on the bed rail, his vision blurring with tears. "Lily, But she'd already closed her eyes, a small smile on her lips, her hand still in his. The monitors beeped steadily, showing a strong, healthy heartbeat, someone else's heart beating in his daughter's chest, giving her the life he should have protected from the beginning. "Time's up," the nurse said gently. "She needs to rest." Nathan carefully extracted his hand from Lily's, bent down and kissed her forehead. "I love you," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I love you." He didn't know if she heard him, didn't know if it mattered. He just knew that something fundamental had shifted in his universe, that nothing would ever be the same, that he'd walked into this hospital as Nathan Cole, the billionaire, and was walking out as someone completely different. A father. Sophia was waiting in the hallway when Nathan emerged from Lily's room. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed and fierce. What did she mean, Daddy came back? Nathan took a breath. This was it. The moment of truth. "Can we talk somewhere private?" They found an empty consultation room down the hall. Sophia closed the door and crossed her arms, her body language screaming defensiveness. "Talk! 6 years ago, I was in a relationship with a woman named Elena Rodriguez." Nathan's voice was steady, despite the earthquake happening inside his chest. "She got pregnant. My father pressured me to end the relationship. I did. When Elena told me she was pregnant, I offered her money for an abortion. She refused. I stopped taking her calls. I blocked her number. I pretended she didn't exist." Sophia's face had gone from pale to white. "No. I didn't know she died in childbirth. I didn't know the baby survived. I didn't know anything until 2 weeks ago when Dr. Sanderson ran genetic tests." Nathan pulled the papers from his jacket pocket. He'd been carrying them like a talisman, a punishment, a reminder. "Lily is Eleanor's daughter, and she's mine." Sophia grabbed the papers, her hands shaking so badly the pages rattled. She read through the genetic reports, the hospital records, the adoption paperwork. With each page, her face grew harder, colder. When she finally looked up, her eyes were full of fury. "You knew. For 2 weeks, you've known, and you didn't tell me. Dr. Sanderson advised me to wait. He said if I told you, you might what? Disappear? Take Lily and run?" Sophia's voice was rising. "He was right. That's exactly what I should do. You abandoned Elena. You abandoned your own child. What makes you think I'd trust you anywhere near Lily?" "Because I'm trying to make it right. Because I've spent 2 weeks barely breathing, knowing that I have a daughter and she's dying and it's my fault. It's not your fault she's sick. That's genetics. Bad luck, God's plan or whatever." Sophia was pacing now, the papers crumpled in her fist. "But it is your fault that you weren't there, that Elena died alone, that Lily spent the first 4 days of her life in a hospital with no one who loved her." Every word was a knife, and Nathan took them all because he deserved every cut. "You're right. You're absolutely right. I was a coward. I let my father control me. I chose money and comfort over responsibility. I failed Elena, and I failed Lily. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Not ever again. You don't get to decide that. I'm her mother. I've raised her for 6 years. I've been there for every nightmare, every doctor's appointment, every time she cried because the other kids made fun of her for being deaf. Where were you? Living in your penthouse, making millions, not even knowing she existed." Sophia's voice broke. "She's mine. The law says she's mine. Biology doesn't erase 6 years of being her mother. I'm not trying to take her from you. I would never. Then what do you want? To play daddy on weekends? To show up for birthdays and buy expensive presents and then go back to your real life?" Sophia's eyes blazed. "Lily deserves better than a part-time father who'll abandon her the second things get difficult. She deserves better than you." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow, but they also ignited something in his chest, a fierce, protective rage he'd never felt before. "You're right. She deserves better. She deserves everything, and I'm going to give it to her. Not because I'm trying to buy her love or assuage my guilt, but because she's my daughter and I love her. You don't even know her. Then let me know her. Let me be part of her life. I'm not asking for custody or legal rights or anything that threatens you. I'm just asking for a chance to be the father I should have been from the beginning. Sophia stared at him for a long moment. The anger in her eyes warred with something else. Fear, maybe, or exhaustion, or the terrible weight of being a single mother who'd carried everything alone for 6 years. If I say no, then I'll respect your decision. I'll maintain the medical trust, make sure Lily has everything she needs, and I'll stay away. The words tasted like ash. But I'm asking you not to say no. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove I'm different from the man who abandoned Eleanor. People don't change. I have to believe they can. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Nathan gestured at the hospital around them. Lily got a new heart today, a second chance. Don't I deserve one too? Sophia closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the anger had been replaced by a bone-deep weariness that made her look 20 years older. I need time to think, to process all of this. Take all the time you need. And you need to understand something. Sophia stepped closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. If you hurt her, if you make promises you don't keep, if you disappear, if you break her heart, I will make sure you never see her again. I don't care how much money you have or how many lawyers you can afford. She's been through enough. I won't let anyone hurt her ever again, not even her biological father. I understand. Do you? Sophia's eyes searched his face. I don't think you do. I don't think you understand what it means to love someone more than your own life. To wake up every morning terrified that today will be the day they die. To make choices between rent and medication. To work 3 jobs and still come home to an empty refrigerator. To pray to God for a miracle you can't afford. That's what it means to be Lily's parent. It's not photo ops and presents. It's sacrifice. Every single day. Then teach me, Nathan said quietly. Teach me how to be what she needs. Before Sophia could respond, the door burst open. Dr. Sanderson stood there, his face grey. Lily's crashing. We need to get to ICU now. They ran. The next 6 hours were a nightmare of medical jargon Nathan couldn't understand, and machines screaming alarms that made his soul hurt. Lily's body was rejecting the new heart. Her immune system had recognized the foreign tissue and launched an attack. The doctors pumped her full of immunosuppressants and steroids and drugs with names Nathan couldn't pronounce. Sophia held Lily's hand and prayed in Spanish. Nathan stood in the corner, useless, watching his daughter fight for her life for the 2nd time in one day. This wasn't supposed to happen. Dr. Sanderson had said the surgery was successful. The heart was a perfect match. Lily was strong. She was supposed to live. At hour 3, Lily's vitals began to stabilize. The doctors allowed themselves cautious optimism. At hour 5, she was improving steadily. At hour 6, Dr. Sanderson finally stepped away from her bedside and pulled off his mask. She's through the worst of it. The rejection episode is under control. We'll keep her heavily sedated for the next 48 hours and monitor closely, but her body is starting to accept the heart. He looked at Nathan and Sophia with exhausted eyes. She's going to make it. Sophia collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands. Nathan wanted to comfort her, but didn't know if he had the right. So he just stood there, watching his daughter breathe with someone else's heart, and wondered how you atoned for 6 years of absence. Dr. Sanderson pulled Nathan aside while Sophia sat with Lily. I need to tell you something about the rejection episode. What about it? It's not uncommon for transplant patients to experience some degree of rejection in the first few days, but Lily's was particularly severe. I ran additional tests to see if we missed something in the tissue typing. Dr. Sanderson's voice dropped. Nathan, Lily's immune system is extremely sensitive, more sensitive than normal. It's likely a genetic factor, something she inherited from one of her biological parents. What are you saying? I'm saying that without continued intensive medical care and immunosuppressant therapy, Lily will have more rejection episodes. Probably several over the next few years. Each one risks permanent damage to the new heart. She'll need close monitoring, immediate access to top-tier medical care, expensive medications, the kind of care that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Nathan felt cold. The trust fund will cover it. For now. But trusts can be depleted. Medical costs can spiral beyond anyone's projections. And if something happens to you, if your company goes under, if you die, if any number of things change, that trust might not be enough. Dr. Sanderson met Nathan's eyes. Lily needs stability. She needs a parent who can guarantee she'll have access to the best care possible for the rest of her life. Sophia can't do that alone, no matter how much she loves Lily. She needs help. She won't accept my help. She made that clear. Then you need to give her a reason to change her mind. Because right now, you're the difference between Lily living a full life and dying before she reaches adulthood. Whether Sophia likes it or not, you're part of this equation now. Nathan looked through the window at Sophia sitting beside Lily's bed, holding her daughter's hand like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to earth. He thought about Elena, dying alone in this same hospital, believing her baby had died too. He thought about his own father, cold and demanding, who'd taught Nathan that love was weakness and family was obligation. He thought about Lily, calling him daddy, her small hand in his, trusting him to save her. "What do I do?" Nathan asked. "You do what fathers do. You show up every single day. You prove that you're not going anywhere, and you give Sophia time to see that you mean it." Dr. Sanderson put a hand on Nathan's shoulder. "But you need to be all in, Nathan. No halfway. Kids don't understand part-time parents. Either you're her father or you're not. There's no middle ground." Nathan watched Lily sleep, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths powered by a heart that wasn't hers, in a body that was. His daughter. His miracle, his second chance. "I'm all in," Nathan said. And for the first time in 6 years, since the day he'd hung up on Elena and pretended she didn't exist, Nathan Cole told the truth without calculating the cost. Lily woke up 3 days later. By then, Nathan had moved into the hospital waiting room semi-permanently. Rebecca brought him changes of clothes and his laptop. He conducted board meetings via video call, signed contracts on hospital clipboards, and made million-dollar decisions between visits to Lily's bedside. His company's stock dropped 2 points when news leaked that Nathan Cole was distracted by personal matters. But Nathan discovered he didn't care. The stock would recover. Lily's childhood wouldn't. Sophia maintained a careful distance. She was polite, civil, but her eyes held walls Nathan didn't know how to scale. She let him visit Lily but always stayed in the room, a silent guardian making sure he didn't overstep invisible boundaries. Nathan accepted it. He'd earned her distrust. Trust would have to be rebuilt slowly, if it could be rebuilt at all. When Lily finally opened her eyes, truly awake and alert, Sophia called Nathan in from the waiting room. He approached the bed carefully, aware of Sophia watching his every move. Lily's face lit up when she saw him, that smile that made his chest hurt, and she immediately started signing. "She wants to know if you're really her daddy," Sophia translated, her voice neutral. Nathan looked at Sophia, asking silent permission. She gave a tiny nod. Nathan turned back to Lily and knelt beside the bed so they were eye level. "Yes," he said clearly, knowing Sophia would translate into sign language. "I'm your daddy. I should have been here all along, and I'm sorry I wasn't. But I'm here now, and I'm never leaving again." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She reached out with both arms, careful of the IV lines, and Nathan leaned in, letting her hug him. She felt stronger already, her heartbeat steady against his chest, someone else's heart, but beating for his daughter, keeping her alive, giving her future. "I missed you," Sophia signed for Lily. "I missed you too, sweetheart. So much. Mama said you were in heaven with my first mama." Nathan glanced at Sophia, whose face had gone carefully blank. "Your mama was right that I wasn't here. But I'm here now, and I'm going to be here for everything from now on. School plays, birthdays, bad days, good days, all of it." Lily pulled back and studied his face seriously. Then she signed something that made Sophia's breath catch. "She wants to know if you're going to take her away from me," Sophia whispered. Nathan looked at Sophia, really looked at her, and saw past the walls to the terror underneath. She wasn't just protecting Lily. She was protecting herself from losing the daughter she'd raised, the child who'd given her life meaning. Nathan understood that fear now. It lived in his chest too. "Never," Nathan said firmly, holding Sophia's gaze. "Your mama is the person who saved you when nobody else would. She's the person who loved you when I was too stupid and selfish to even know you existed. She's the person who worked 3 jobs and prayed every night and never gave up on you. I'm not here to replace her. I'm here to help her, to help both of you. We're a team now, the 3 of us, if that's okay with both of you." Lily looked between Nathan and Sophia, her young face serious. Then she gestured for both of them to come closer. When they did, she took Nathan's hand and Sophia's hand and put them together, covering them with her own small hands. She signed something with her free hand. "She says we're family," Sophia translated, her voice breaking. "She says families hold hands and don't let go." Nathan felt something crack open inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for 34 years, since the day his mother died, and his father told him crying was weakness. Tears spilled down his face, and he didn't try to stop them. He just held Lily's hand and Sophia's hand, and let himself feel all of it. The grief for the years he'd lost, the joy of this moment, the terror that he'd somehow mess it up. The fierce love for this little girl who'd saved his life in more ways than she'd ever know. "Family," Nathan agreed. "We're family." 3 months later, on a Saturday morning in June, Nathan taught Lily to ride a bike in Discovery Park. Sophia watched from a picnic blanket, supposedly reading a book, but actually watching every move Nathan made with Lily. Trust was growing between them, slowly, like a plant in poor soil. But it was growing. Lily had started school in a program for deaf children and was thriving. Her heart was strong. The rejection episodes were becoming less frequent. Dr. Sanderson was cautiously optimistic about her long-term prognosis. She had the medications she needed, the care she needed, and 2 parents who'd walk through fire for her. "Hiya, Daddy!" Lily signed with one hand while clutching the handlebars with the other. "Push me higher!" Nathan ran alongside the bike, one hand on the seat, ready to catch her if she fell. His suits had been replaced by jeans and T-shirts on weekends. His penthouse was now filled with children's books and art supplies, and a second bedroom decorated in Lily's favorite color, purple. His company still ran smoothly, but Nathan left the office at 5 now. Some things were more important than profit margins. "You're doing it," Nathan called out. "You're riding by yourself." And she was. Lily pedaled furiously, her face alight with concentration and joy, and Nathan realized he'd been holding on to nothing but air for the last 10 feet. She was riding on her own, growing up, becoming the person she was meant to be. Sophia appeared beside him, smiling. Over the past 3 months, she'd slowly let Nathan into their lives. Dinner 3 times a week, weekend outings, birthday parties. She'd seen him show up every single day, even when he was exhausted, even when work was demanding, even when Lily was cranky or sick or just being a normal 6-year-old. She'd seen him keep his promises. And slowly, grudgingly, she'd started to believe he meant them. "She's happy," Sophia said softly. She deserves to be. So do you. Sophia looked at him. I've been thinking about what you said, about being a team, about family. Nathan's heart kicked against his ribs. Yeah? I'm not ready to call you a friend yet. And I'm definitely not ready for anything more than co-parenting. But I'm ready to stop waiting for you to disappoint her. You've proven you're serious about this, about her. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was progress. Nathan would take it. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me. Thank Lily. She's the one who wouldn't let me push you away. She knew somehow, even before we told her the truth, that you were important, that you belonged in her life. Sophia smiled. Kids see things adults miss. They watched Lily circle the path, her small voice shouting in the way deaf children did, not quite able to modulate volume. Other families in the park smiled at her, at them, seeing what looked like a perfect family having a perfect day. They didn't know about the heart transplant, or the genetic tests, or the complicated history. They just saw a dad teaching his daughter to ride a bike, a mum watching from the sidelines, a family being a family. And maybe that was enough. Maybe perfect families didn't exist. Maybe families were just people who showed up for each other, even when it was hard, even when they were scared, even when they didn't know what they were doing. Maybe that was the only thing that mattered. Daddy, Mama, watch this. Lily took her hands off the handlebars for exactly 2 seconds before grabbing them again, laughing with delight at her own bravery. Nathan laughed too, the sound startling him. When was the last time he'd laughed like that? Actually laughed, not the polite chuckle he gave at board meetings or charity events. He couldn't remember. Maybe never. The bike ride ended when Lily crashed spectacularly into a bush, more from distraction than lack of skill. She emerged with leaves in her hair and a scraped knee and declared herself the best bike rider in the whole world. Sophia cleaned the scrape while Nathan freed the bike from the bush. Then they ate the picnic Sophia had packed, sandwiches and fruit and cookies shaped like hearts that Lily had helped make. As the sun began to set, painting the Seattle sky in shades of pink and gold, Lily fell asleep on the blanket between Nathan and Sophia, her head in Nathan's lap, her hand holding Sophia's. Her chest rose and fell with steady breaths, that borrowed heart beating strong and sure. She's going to have a good life, Sophia said quietly. Because of you. The surgery, the medications, all of it. She wouldn't have had any of that without you. She wouldn't need any of it if I'd been there from the beginning. If I'd supported Elena, you can't change the past. None of us can. We can only change what we do right now in this moment. Sophia looked at him across Lily's sleeping form. You're changing. I see it. The man who walked into my apartment 3 months ago isn't the same man sitting here now. That man was dead inside. He just didn't know it until a 6-year-old girl pushed him out of the way of a truck. Nathan gently brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face. She saved my life twice. Once on that sidewalk, and once when I found out she was mine. She's not yours. She's not mine either. She belongs to herself. We're just lucky enough to be part of her story. Nathan had spent his whole life owning things, companies, buildings, cars, art. He'd measured success in acquisitions and net worth. But Sophia was right. You couldn't own a person. You could only love them and hope they loved you back. Hope you were worthy of their love. I'm going to mess this up sometimes, Nathan said. I'm going to make mistakes. I don't know how to be a father. My own father was not a good role model. That's putting it mildly. Then be the father you wish you'd had. It's that simple and that complicated. Sophia gathered the remains of their picnic, and when you mess up, because you will, you apologize, you do better. You keep showing up. That's all any parent can do. They packed up as the park lights flickered on. Nathan carried Lily to the car, her small body warm and trusting in his arms. She didn't wake up, just curled against him the way she had in the ambulance, the way she had after surgery, the way she did now whenever she felt safe. That trust was a gift Nathan didn't take for granted. He'd spent too many years being someone people feared or envied, but never truly trusted. On the drive back to Sophia's apartment, Nathan made a decision. I bought a house in Queen Anne. 4 bedrooms, big backyard, near good schools. I want you and Lily to move in. Sophia's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Nathan, separate bedrooms, separate floors if you want. I'm not asking for anything except to be close to her, to be part of the daily routine instead of just weekend visits. I want to make her breakfast and help with homework and be there when she has nightmares. I want to be her dad, not the guy who shows up occasionally with presents. That's a big step, I know, but I'm ready. The question is whether you are. Sophia was quiet for a long time. The city lights blurred past the windows. In the back seat, Lily slept on, oblivious to the conversation that would change her life again. Finally, Sophia spoke. Can I see the house first? Nathan felt hope bloom in his chest. Whenever you want. Tomorrow. We'll look at it tomorrow, and if it works for both of us, if there are boundaries and rules and clear understanding that I'm her mother and you're her father, but we're not a couple, just co-parents, then maybe we can try. Thank you, Nathan said. I know I don't deserve... Stop saying that. You're here now. You're trying. That deserves recognition. Sophia glanced at him. But Nathan, if this doesn't work, if living together creates problems or confuses Lily or makes things worse instead of better, we move back out. No arguments, no lawyers, no custody battles. We do what's best for her, always. Agreed? Agreed. When they reached the apartment, Nathan carried Lily upstairs and tucked her into bed. She stirred long enough to sign, "Love you, Daddy," before falling back asleep. Nathan signed back. He'd been taking lessons, learning Lily's language so they could communicate directly, and kissed her forehead. In the hallway, Sophia stopped him. "I need to tell you something about Elena." Nathan froze. "Okay. I knew her. Not well, but enough. She worked at the hospital cafeteria for a while when she was pregnant. We talked sometimes during breaks. She told me about the baby's father. She never said your name, but she described you. Rich, handsome, ambitious. His father hated her. She loved you anyway." Sophia's eyes held pain. "The night she gave birth, I was working in the NICU. I held her hand when they told her the first baby had died. I was there when she asked if the second baby, Lily, was healthy. The doctor said yes, and Eleanor smiled. Even dying, even having lost one baby, she smiled because Lily was okay." Nathan couldn't breathe. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Elena's last words were about you. She said, 'Tell him I forgive him. Tell him to be happy.' The nurses assumed she was delirious, but I knew. She knew she was dying, and she used her last breath to forgive the man who'd abandoned her." Sophia's voice broke. "So stop punishing yourself. Stop thinking you don't deserve Lily or happiness or forgiveness. Elena already gave you those things. Honor her memory by being the father she hoped you'd be." Nathan's vision blurred. He'd carried the guilt for 6 years, let it define him, used it as an excuse to keep everyone at arm's length. But Elena had forgiven him. With her last breath, dying in a hospital bed, she'd forgiven him. The knowledge was both a relief and a weight. He didn't deserve that forgiveness, but he had it anyway. The only question was what he'd do with it. "I'll try," Nathan managed. "I'll try to be worthy of it. That's all anyone can do." 6 months later, on a cold December morning, Nathan woke up to find Lily standing beside his bed in her purple pajamas, holding her stuffed rabbit. The house was quiet. Sophia had the day off and was sleeping in, and for a moment Nathan panicked, thinking something was wrong. "Lily, are you okay? Does your chest hurt?" She shook her head and signed, her movements slow and deliberate so he'd understand. Nathan had gotten much better at sign language, but he was far from fluent. "Bad dream?" he asked. Another head shake. She signed something else, then climbed onto his bed uninvited, snuggling against his side the way she did during their Saturday morning cartoon marathons. Nathan automatically wrapped an arm around her, and she rested her head on his chest, right over his heart. They stayed like that for a while, quiet and warm. Outside, snow fell on Seattle, rare and magical. Through the window, Nathan could see their yard, transforming into a winter wonderland. Lily loved snow. They'd build a snowman later after breakfast, after Sophia woke up. They'd make hot chocolate and watch Christmas movies and just be a family. Lily signed against his chest, and Nathan had to sit up slightly to see her hands clearly in the dim morning light. She was signing slowly, carefully, making sure he understood every word. "I had a dream about my first mama. She was beautiful and happy, and she told me she was proud of me. She said thank you for taking care of her daddy, for saving him when he was lost. She said we found each other because that's what families do. They find each other even when they're lost." Nathan's throat closed up. That was a good dream. She said one more thing. Lily looked up at him with those enormous brown eyes, wise beyond her years. She said you're not lost anymore. She said you're home. Tears spilled down Nathan's face. He pulled Lily close, holding her carefully, mindfully of her chest, where that new heart beat steady and strong. His daughter, his miracle, his home. "She's right," Nathan whispered. "I am home. You're my home, Lily. You and your mama. You're everything." "I know," Lily signed matter-of-factly. "That's what families are." And in that moment, in a house filled with love instead of loneliness, with a daughter he'd never expected and a future he'd never planned, Nathan Cole finally understood what his father had never taught him, that the best investments weren't measured in money, but in moments like this. That success wasn't about building empires, but about building families. That the only thing worth having was something worth keeping. He'd spent 34 years chasing the wrong things, but a 6-year-old deaf girl had crashed into his life, literally, and shown him what mattered: love, connection, forgiveness, second chances. The courage to be vulnerable, the strength to stay. Later, when Sophia woke up and found them asleep in Nathan's bed, Lily sprawled across his chest, Nathan's arms around her protectively. She took a picture. Not for social media or to show anyone else, just for them, a moment captured forever, a family that shouldn't exist but did, a love that defied logic and probability and every odd against it, because sometimes the best stories aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones that find us when we're lost, that save us when we're drowning, that give us purpose when we've forgotten why we're alive. Sometimes the best stories start with a stumble on a sidewalk, a little girl in a pink coat, and a heart that beats for someone who didn't know they needed saving. And sometimes those stories end, not with an ending at all, but with a beginning. A family, a home, a future full of possibility, love.